Hello everyone, Josh here with Texas bringing guys and gals some more cat fantasy, and today we finally have the global tier list. Now, before we get into the actual tier list, I just want to say a couple things. First off, this tier list is not usually this lacking in depth for me. Personally, I like to make my tier list have all the categories broken up individually, showing you what the character's value is per different type of content available within the game, both competitive or non-competitive modes like arena, PVE, story, towers, if there's certain types of dungeons, farming stages, etc. I like to have that all broken up, but I did not have the time or the manpower to pull that off like I did for a game in previous years like Outer Plane, where we put a lot of work into that tier list. It's just such an undertaking. It's such a lot of work to do for a single person or even two people. So I opted to go ahead and do more of like a middle of the road type of tier list. So we're actually doing a breakdown between PvE and real-time arena for both SSRs and SRs, because I kind of want to give you guys and gals somewhat of a perspective into what units from both SR and SSR are good, generally speaking, in both types of content. So that's kind of how we went about doing this particular tier list. Sorry, my head is covering up a few of the units, but we will read all these out tier by tier, list by list, so you won't miss a thing. Plus, I will have this list in the description below, as always, so you can go ahead and check it out for yourselves. I will keep updating this as need be, because obviously, as you know, tier lists are always changing, they're always updating, and there's always new information coming out. Now, just a little background into how this list was put together. I've been playing on the PTR version of the game, which is basically the very first version of the game that we are playing here in Global, that they do all the new updates and test all the new features and stuff like that in before they push them to other versions like SEA and then, of course, now Global. I've been playing for about almost a year. I have lots of experience in the game from both competitive and casual standpoints. I've pushed all the content that you can push. I've reached, some of the higher rankings you could possibly achieve in all the different content. And I have experience playing a lot of the strong metas, against the metas, and with the metas in different various content as well. So I have a lot of experience with all the units that we currently have on Global and what they're capable of doing. And I'm going to be using all that knowledge to share with you guys and gals here to make your global gaming experience as best as it can be, as smooth as it can be, and as efficient as possible. So with that said, let's get into the list. Now, I want to thank Mr. Lucas from Discord, because he's going to be helping me add some overlays of the character's image in Google Spreadsheets here. That way you guys can put a name to a face to make it a little bit, more reasonable of trying to figure out what unit is what if you're not familiar with these units by just name alone. This will help you out. So far, we only have the one done because it's still a work in progress. I just wanted to get this out because I feel like there's a lot of misconceptions and misinformation with a lot of these units and what they're capable of doing. And a lot of people don't even know what some of these units are capable of doing. I'm seeing a lot of people coming to me saying, Josh, why am I stuck? Why is my CP so low? Why cannot I progress? And I'm seeing a lot of these teams that they're using being just 0-star SSR. Ladies and gentlemen, today, if anything else, hopefully I get the point across that there are some good SRs in this game that you can use to push long-term, free-to-play, casual, or even as a whale, because they're going to be getting stars up a lot sooner than your SSRs. Thus, they're going to have more CP, and you're going to be able to push more content, which will allow you to get more summons to eventually get more SSR copies. So it's kind of all a cycle here, but I am seeing a lot of people just ignoring the SRs in this game for whatever reason. Hopefully today I can put that to rest. Anyway, let's get into the actual tier list. So let's start off by talking about the PvE overall tier list. So in tier 2, we're going to go from the lowest tier to the highest. We're going to do it a little bit different. So in tier 2, we have Light Marine Maverick Echo. You can pick her up from Arena over time. You're going to be able to max her out, but it's going to take you some time there. You're going to have to push Arena constantly to be able to get enough Arena coins to go ahead and pick her up and max her out. She's a pretty solid hero, nothing too special. She's not on the level of Anja when it comes to her shields, but they're still decent enough, especially, in a PvE format. When you're taking on a lot of enemies and stuff like that. It's always helpful to have a shield kind of like right at the get-go when the battle starts. It can really, be the difference between death and survival. We're not going to talk about every unit in detail like we just did that, but I just figured that was one I wanted to talk about a little bit because obviously she's not a normal just go summon for her hero. She's one of those units you actually have to go do things for to grab her shards from a particular shop. We have Heartfelt Healing Triss. Now, this hero, for whatever reason, was getting pushed to the moon day one of global. I don't know where that came from. I don't know where people are getting that information from. I'll tell you right now, on PTR and on the SEA version of the game, she was not a high priority unit at all. She was decent. She got the job done. She was very helpful. Her debuffs, cleanse was always nice every once in a while, depending on what content you're trying to clear, especially those stages where you're dealing with curse and poison in PvE and, in tower and stuff. It's always nice to have that cleanse, but she was never really a top of the line hero at all in any way, shape, or form. There are definitely better units out there, including an SR we're going to be talking about here in a little bit, that just kind of does her job better and adds overall better synergy and flexibility to your team. So Heartfelt Healing Triss is tier 2 in PvE. We also have One False Note Arena. And then moving over, we have Sparkle Rider Echo. I actually use her quite a bit on my main account because she can reduce SP of units, which, basically takes away their ability to ultimate. So that was always very helpful. Ember in the Dark Danica. This hero, she got nerfed 3 times in PTR. They were not playing around with her at all. She was so powerful, and they just said, nope, 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 and just kept nerfing her and nerfing her and nerfing her. But she's still, like a phoenix rising from the ashes. She kept coming back again and again and again, and she's still up there doing, wonderful things. In PvE, early game, she's going to be very, very good. She's going to be like your mini combat mode Shiro, your mini, submarine Shiro. She's going to be your mini Ashura, what have you. She's going to be that nice little nuker that is also one of the units that will be farmable in hard mode story, in case you're wondering. And then we have Scarlet Samurai Minami. This unit is a little interesting because she's trying to be a DPS, but she's also trying to be a tank at the same time. She's not really a master of either, but her taunting ability is handy sometimes, especially if you're running a dot team later on with like Dorothy, Yunkin. You can even throw SSR Yunpai in there. Kind of a nice little red team, I guess you could say. Minami, with those taunts could be very decent in other content, which we'll get into when we go over PvP. So, hey, any unit that can kind of disrupt the flow of the enemy and allow you to have an easier time of clearing stages, they're always going to get some kudos. All right, moving up the ladder. Tier 1. Combat mode Shiro. We don't even need to talk about her. She's a single target nuker. We already know all about it. She's a current raid up hero right now on global before Dorothy comes here, I believe tomorrow or the next day. So ain't much else to say about that. She's the only reason she's not tier 0 is because Ashura is just going to be a better long-term value unit, and she's going to be more accessible to be able to pull for, considering she's not a raid up at all. So combat mode Shiro does get deduct a little bit of points there and does move down to tier 1, because I just cannot put a unit in tier 0 with another hero when the other tier 0 unit is just better, because I can't rate them as being equals when one clearly isn't an equal. Abyss Oath Sylviette, another strong single target user, that kind of works around with debuff, stuff like that. She's very expensive. I mean, very expensive. If you want to get this unit, she's completely behind a paywall. She's going to cost you thousands of dollars to completely max her out. She is a nice unit, very decent, does, very decent. Actually above decent. She does pretty solid damage. So, I mean, she's worthy of a tier 1 in terms of individual value and overall value, but she is going to cost you an arm and a leg, and if you're free to play, you're never going to see her. Tactical Submarine Shiro, slightly a little bit, in my opinion, below combat mode Shiro, not because of the damage, just because she needs a little bit more setup. So, in terms of damage output, they're kind of neck and neck, but Submarine Shiro will need a little bit of setup because she does have one of the best single target damage potentials in the entirety of the game, even rivaling and even in some cases surpassing Ashura depending on the content, but she does require a little bit of setup because of the way her mechanics work. So we might do a video about her in the future and talk a little bit more about that. Ghost Club Poppy, another fear hero. Well, actually, I don't want to say another fear hero. It's our first fear hero we're talking about today. She's going to be extremely good in pretty much all content in the entirety of the game, both competitively or non-competitively. She's just got a solid kit. She's also going to be able to be a nice CP battery because you can build her up with lots of HP. which is, you know, the highest valued CP stat in the game. So very solid hero there. Mystic Visitor No Fret. At endgame, her ultimate becomes one hell of a hit. It's a nice AoE nuke for sure. She's built around a lot of dots as well in her own right. You can even throw her in the dot team with Dorothy and Yunkin, have some nice dot damage going on there. Very solid hero. Flying Ember Yunkin, I mean, we've already briefly mentioned the red dot team. She's a part of that with her curses. Very strong. Sunset Radiance Yunpai. She has the ability to allow you to do additional damage to multiple targets because of her mechanics. She's also going to be very good in mid to end game because she's able to scale the stats that help you get around damage mitigation or defenses. So that's also nice. And she's going to be fitting well, I guess, into that dot team that we've already mentioned 100 times. Ashen Dancer Elaine, good support hero there. Now, that is tier 1. Let's move on to tier 0, and let's try and speed this up a little bit as well. Crown of Frost Anja, I mean, what do we need to say? She is one of the best supports in the entirety of the game. She's basically your tank that's just going to provide you with those spammed shields. She can even do some crowd control with her freezing. She's just a solid overall unit and one of the best in the game. And we get her at 2-star for free, so that's awesome. Forest Ranger Ashra, we've already talked about her briefly. She's one of the best, if not the best, nukers currently in the entirety of Global. She's going to hit extremely hard, and when you get to end game, get her to 5 stars plus, she really starts to take off and go to the next level. Purifier's Waltz, Haley, I mean, if you're talking about one of the pound for pound best units in the entirety of the game, even still on PTR version, which is about a year old, you are going to be talking about Haley, and you're going to be talking about the unit below her, Green Echo, which unfortunately is behind a paywall. But I'm not going to dismiss how amazing that hero is as well. Haley and Green Echo are just powerhouses because they're providing you with tons of end game level damage because they're scaling to jab, as they call it on Global, which is basically penetration damage. They're penetrating defenses, doing tons of damage, which is going to be very helpful when you get to mid-end game when a lot of enemies have very high defense and they're also having high endurance, which means you're going to be doing like 1 damage pretty consistently if you don't have units that are able to kind of get around those mechanics or hit extremely high modifier numbers like an Ashura. So having Haley and a Green Echo, even running them together is amazing. Not to mention what we're going to talk about with Haley and her potential team setup that I already know is strong, but global players have not, realized yet, and you will soon when we get into more videos in the future for the competitive mode. And then lastly, we have Cageling Wish Dorothy. She is not available yet in Global. She will be here tomorrow or the next day. We already know she's coming though, so I went ahead and throw her in there. She is going to be another one of those powerhouse AoE units. She's going to be a bit pricey though, however, because obviously she's going to be a rate up. But in my overall, experience with her, she's better pound for pound than the current rate up combat mode Shiro. She's providing a lot more flexibility, a lot more variety to your team. She even has a team that you can build around her. She's applying curses. She's applying damage that's going to be stacked multiple times over based on her mechanics with her passive and her star-up effects. She's able to spam her ultimate eventually as well at endgame. She's a crazy, crazy hero. And she's going to be doing tons of damage. All right. So that is the SSR PVE heroes. Let's move over to the SR PVE heroes. Now, there's not going to be anywhere close to the amount of SRs listed as SSRs because SRs, there are a handful of solid heroes and then a lot of just fluff, okay? That's just kind of the way it goes. SRs also don't have any, pathos weapons or exclusive weapons, whatever they're calling them on Global now. They don't have those, which is definitely a big downside to CP and additional stats and skill sets and stuff like that. But there's still some that just really stand out and are really, really good. So let's talk about the tier 2 PvE heroes first. Game Master Shiro. It's a mini AoE hero that can also help you get through tower. Very, very good unit there. Mechanic Cat Echo. She has a solid AoE skill. She can also buff crit damage. And she can even remove SP on her ultimate from enemies to keep them from doing their ultimate. So very solid blue hero there. Freestyle Skater Ashura, that's the free-to-play unit, one of the very first free-to-play units that you get in the entirety of the game. She does have vulnerability debuff, which is one of the best debuffs in the entire game because it allows you to stack damage. So very solid unit there that you can use early on, maybe up to mid game. Pure Grace Triss. This hero, I mean, she's a decent enough healer in her own right. So her skill set isn't all that, but it's not bad either. It's a nice free-to-play unit you could use for a while. And if nothing else, you could use her as a good assist hero. So there's that. Plus, everybody loves Trisses for some reason. And then we have Hysterical Fan Now. She is another AoE damage dealer. She's just not on the level of some of the other SR damage dealers, like the one we're going to be talking about next. But she's okay enough that you can use her to kind of maybe climb for a little while, especially if you're lacking AoE damage. She will provide you with some of that. Now, Crimson Charm Triss. She is the queen of AoE for the SRs. She's an amazing hero. They actually nerfed her. She used to actually scale to crit damage, which was incredible because her and a unit we're going to be talking about here later were an amazing combo that was almost game-breaking, and they were just SRs. So she's an amazing AoE damage dealer. She has an AoE skill and an AoE ultimate, which is very, very good because you can double up on that AoE damage. Truce and Ink Yumpai. This, now we're getting into the SR class of units that are really, they play above their grade. These are not SR heroes by any stretch of the imagination. These units are, even in some regards, better than a lot of the SSRs. These three units we're going to be talking about here right now. So, Truce and Ink Yumpai allows you to increase crit damage, gives you attack buff skills, and gives you passive healing, healing over time, whatever. And she also has an amazing passive that allows one of your top DPSs to do even more damage perma throughout the entirety of the fight without even using a skill. So she is just a pound for pound amazing SR and probably the best SR in the entirety of the game, if I'm being honest with you. And you will be using her deep into late game. Matter of fact, even on PTR, people are still using her today, and the game has been out for about a year in that version of the game. So that just goes to show how well she's been, used and utilized. And the funny thing is that she's been nerfed as well. She used to be even more powerful than that, like way more powerful. Her and Triss used to basically dominate the game as two SRs. So the fact that even after they both been nerfed, they're still this high and highly regarded and respected within the game. If you know, you know. They're very, very solid units. Duck and Roll Poppy. Now this hero, she's gonna be part of one of the most broken PvP metas that you're going to be able to create, which we will briefly talk about here when we get to the Arena hero tier list. This unit can allow you to actually have an opportunity to actually go second and still win in PvE and in competitive modes as well, which again we will talk about soon. Duck and Roll Poppy can be built with an endurance set from PvP, from the PvP shop, and you can give her all HP, all endurance, defense, whatever. You want to make her an absolute unit, a hard to kill tank, an immovable force. She has Fear as well in her kit, which is going to be good for disruption. And, she has Taunting on her passive that just kind of makes the enemies just stick their fingers up their butt because they can't do nothing about it. Very, very top tier unit right there. She's even better than some of the units that are SSRs that also have taunts in their kits. Lovely Makeup Mia. If you are looking for a bargain version of Anja, look no further than Mia, but Mia also does provide a little bit of extra because she can provide you with attack increase for your DPSs as well to go along with her very decent shields. And for an SR, I mean, you can't ask for more than that. She's providing you with the ability to neutralize damage while also providing you with more damage for your DPSs. So she's giving you a little bit of both worlds there, and overall just an exceptional hero. If you've not used Lovely Makeup Mia, I don't know what you're doing. She's an awesome hero. Matter of fact, she's a lovely hero. All right, so that wraps up our SSR PVE heroes for both the SSR and the SR. Woo! All right, ladies and gentlemen, now we're going to get down to the SSR Arena heroes, which my head is kind of covering up half of. We're going to go through these quick now, so hopefully you can keep up. Tier 2, Tactical Submarine Shiro. We have Sunset Radiance Yumpai, and then Scarlet Samurai Minami. Now, keep in mind that Yumpai and Minami, their tiering would be technically up a little bit if you were running the full red team in Arena, the red dot team, which we will briefly talk about in future videos as well. But, individual value, they're going to be tier 2. But they could move up a tier in that particular team. So I guess you could add an asterisk to those two if you really wanted to. Tier 1, we have Forest Ranger Ashura, we have Combat Mode Shiro, Abyss Oath Sylviette, Ghost Club Poppy, We have Heartfelt Healing Triss, Marine Maverick Echo, and then Mystic Visitor Nofret. Very all solid units for Arena. Triss could be very useful in certain regards if you need a cleanse quickly or a quick heal to kind of top you up in that turn 1 or turn 2. That could kind of, change the outlook of the overall battle. We have Poppy, who, if you're running on, the only unit that I'd actually try to run a luck set on, because if you do get her fears to go off in Arena, that could be very problematic for the opponent in a big way, but it's very RNG heavy. But even outside of that, she still has a really solid kit. And then, of course, Marine Maverick Echo is basically an Anja to a lesser degree. So she's very fitted there for that tier 1 role. And you will, if you get her start up over time, you will be able to use those shields at the beginning of the fight, which could be very, very crucial. Ashura, she won't have enough time to really get going, to really hit her overall stride, because she does take a few turns to really start heating up, to really hit her peak numbers, but she's still going to be a strong single target nuker. Combat Mode Shiro, another single target strong nuker, and then Abyss Oath, another single target strong nuker. So they're all very strong single target nukers if you need a nuker to go in and handle some business. Tier 0. Now, Tier 0. This is where one particular hero who used to be a tier 2 in PvE is now moved all the way up to a tier 0. And that is Ember and Dark Danica. And we're going to talk about her and then Haley in a moment. But let's go ahead and talk about Anja. Obviously, we already know all about Anja. Flying Ember's Yunkin. She's going to be very powerful in PvP because when you pair her up with Dorothy, that's going to be an extremely powerful dot team. And it's actually going to become a meta team. Is it going to become a tier 0 meta team? I don't know. We'll have to see how that plays out, because the team I'm about to mention is the true tier 0 team, and we'll talk about that in a second. Green Echo, we already know about her. AoE, tons of damage, very strong. Not quite as strong as Haley, though, however. And Danica. So, Danica and Haley are units that are allowed to basically get free SP at the beginning of the battle, and because of that, both those heroes could consistently both use her ultimates by turn 2. Haley has an AoE nuke in her kit. Okay, that's going to be ignoring, layers of damage mitigation like a defense or an endurance, etc., depending on how you build her. But she's able to do that by turn 2. She's able to nuke by turn 2. And then Danica has a strong single target nuke as well, and she can also do that by turn 2. So you're running 2 units that are both blue, and they're both able to use their ultimates on turn 2 consistently. That's going to put pressure on any team that you're facing, because now they got to worry about 2 units that are about to nuke them on turn 2, and they have little options in the way of stopping it from happening. And then you add in a unit we're going to be talking about when we get over to the SRs, and it becomes even stronger. And then you also have Anja in that team to provide you with your shields, freezing, anything else that you may need to really just allow you to extend that if you need be, but not so many times will you need to, because getting hit with 2 ultimates by turn 2 is usually pretty freaking devastating. And a lot of people is already thinking, well, I mean, there's ways around that, blah, 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 blah. Well, when we get to the SRs, you'll see how it becomes very problematic, and you really are going to have to build a very specific team to try and even counter this if you can. It's just going to be a very big challenge, and a lot of people are going to get gear checked, because a lot of these teams will be running the same units, and it's going to come down to who invested and built their team better. But anyways, being able to use an ultimate by turn 2 in PvP is extremely, extremely powerful, and both those heroes can do that. Now, last one, moving over to the SRs. Tier 2, Hysterical Fan now, because, AoE damage. Doctor on Duty Minami and Catwalk Diva Minami, they both have taunting in their kits, so that could be very helpful in Arena for particular teams and different teams of different varieties, I guess you could say. We've already talked about the value in taunts and what it could do in some units and some teams before already in the video, so we're not going to talk about that too much more, but you get the idea. They're both more or less going to be there for that reason. Tier 1, Soul Taker Reaper. This is Reaper's debut on any tier list right now. Soul Taker Reaper is actually pretty solid in Arena in terms of what an SR can do because of his passive, which is built for Arena, and the fact he can also use AoE damage as well. He is pretty solid for Arena. Like, if there's one place for him to ever be in, it's Arena. And that's why he made it onto the actual tier list. And I'm sure that name might surprise a lot of you. And a lot of you probably don't even know that character exists because that's how insignificant he is for the rest of the game. But in PvP, he's actually pretty good. Lovely makeup Mia. We've already talked about her already. She's not quite on the level of Anja, but she's like right under there. So being a tier 1 in Arena is pretty fitting for an SR. Mechanic Cat Echo, same situation. Decent AoE skill. Can provide you with crit damage and remove ult gauge. So very good in PvP for an SR. And then tier 0, here we go. Duck and Roll Poppy, back at the top of the list. Truth and Ink Yumpai, already still up on top of the list. Those two units are just amazing. Completely amazing in every aspect of the game. And then you have Crimson Charm Triss, who's now moved up to tier 0 because she is by far the best SR in terms of damage for the majority of content in the game, especially Arena, where AoE is very strong. And she, of course, has an AoE skill and an AoE ultimate. And you can even build her up with crit resistance so she doesn't take as much damage and gets free crit rate for that as well. So she's going to be critting more often. So she's going to be very, very strong for PvP. But Duck and Roll Poppy, if you put her in a team with Danica, Haley, and Anja, that might be the best and most complete Arena meta team right now in Global. Very, very powerful. Because now you have a unit that's going to taunt the entire enemy's team on turn 1, making it to where people who are using combat mode Shiro, or their pay-to-win Abyss Oath Soviets, and their Asheras, they're going to have to hit that Poppy, and they're not going to pop Poppy because she's built like Papa the Sailor Man. Or no, Popeye the Sailor Man. I completely messed up my joke now. Oh my god, we're getting too far into this video. There's going to be a whole origin story soon if we keep going. Anyway, Truce and Ink Yumpai, we've already discussed how powerful she is. She's going to be providing your DPSs with more DPS, passive healing, and attack up skills. And then, of course, her ultimate will also allow you to have more crit damage. So her entire kit is just built for everything that you want in a hero like her for the whole game. She's giving you power, and she's giving you sustainability. What more can you ask from an SR? So that is the tier list for SSRs, both PvE and PvP, and for both SSR and SRs overall. I hope this video was very helpful, very eye-opening. If you guys want more insight and stuff like that, we will be doing more future videos and guides. I will try to keep this updated as well. Let me know what you all think about the tier list in the comment section below. Obviously, it's not perfect. It never will be, and not everybody's going to agree with everything here, but hopefully my experience and what I've provided here and added context is really giving you a good, more overview of what things are and how they work within the game and what you can do with certain units and all that stuff going forward. And I really wanted to hopefully get the light, you know, kind of cast upon the SRs to show you that the SRs are actually really, really strong if you look into some of them and what they're actually able to do in certain teams and fight alongside those SSRs as you continue your adventure through Cat Fantasy. But that's going to be it for me. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn notifications, join us in the Discord in the description below as always. And of course, follow us on X at X's Media. And be sure to check out our Discord for real, guys, because we're going to probably start doing stuff like this in the Discord first. We discuss these things and share these things in the Discord first, so you'll get first look information before we even get it to YouTube. So that's going to be it for me. Until next time, as always, peace.